So my golden retriever, Remy, he keeps crying. And we couldn't figure out why. And he would just stare at the back door. And we'd be like, all right, well, maybe he needs to go to the restroom. Open the door. He doesn't want to go outside. Close the door. Okay, fine. Maybe he's got a ball stuck somewhere. No ball. You know, he cries whenever the ball isn't around. He can't get to it. And then he stress eats, which is weird. But then he keeps crying. He keeps crying over and over and over again. We can't figure out why. It's driving us crazy. We don't know what's going on. And finally, we figure it out. As it turns out, my dog is weirdly scared of boxes. I don't know why. If something like happened to him back in the day when he was a puppy, you know, maybe something happened to him when he was a puppy and it just made him terrified of boxes. But there was a box sitting on the floor, just sitting on the floor. It wasn't even completely blocking the hallway to the staircase, but he wanted to go upstairs and he couldn't because there was a box sitting near the staircase. And it took me a long time. I was like getting annoyed. I was like, just tell me what's wrong. He couldn't do it. He couldn't do it. Poor guy. We need to give... Where are the collars? You know, like the kind you saw in Up? That basically just allow your dogs to talk. Like it can translate their thoughts or their whines or something like that to actual like text or voice. I mean, you know, why can't? It's 2022. We don't have hoverboards. We don't have flying cars. We don't have the collars that allow dogs to talk to us yet. We just got a bunch of gender confused people. That's what we've got. That's what we've got. I did see, however, that earlier today, apparently there's a news report that was released about and it's on my Twitter, at the Brendan Morse, if you want to go check it out right now. Apparently, there is a drug that has been in study for some time, and every single cancer patient that took it, their cancer went into remission. They don't know what the long-term side effects of this pill are, but apparently it's wiping out the cancer, which is pretty awesome. How are you guys doing? What's up with you guys today? How's your week been? Happy hump day. I'm ready for... There's a part of me that keeps thinking it's Friday. And then I have to have that, like, internal mental conversation with myself very gently about how it's only Wednesday. I haven't had, like, a day off in days. So I'm just like, I just want it to be over. But I love doing this. I love hanging out with you guys. I don't have cable, which probably both bubbles me and makes my life a little more fulfilling. You're lucky. TV's bad for you, didn't you hear? Do you know how I hope... Oh, John Kerry. This is a test of the do you realize how effed you're about to be system. If this has been a real emergency, you would have had very limited time to escape and being properly boned. Yeah, if you live near a nuclear power plant and it goes critical... I'm not sure there's much you can do anyway. But from what I understand, the technology that they put for like safety technology that they put into nuclear power plants is like above and beyond what we've had in the past. Remy is a national treasure. Travel Guides International is correct. Remy is a national treasure. 100%. Everyone loves Remy. He's the perfect dog. The only complaint that I have about Remy is like he's anxiety ridden. He has really bad anxiety. And I'm not even sure where he got it. Like he just kind of, I think as a puppy, like, because he came like from, I think he was abused as a puppy. I really do. You know? Like he's terrified of cars, loud noises. He jumps at them all the time. Scared of boxes. Like I don't know what happened to him before we got him. But that kid is an anxious mess. The only thing that makes him feel brave is the tennis ball. He has a tennis ball. It's like spinach to Popeye, man. He will charge into Mount Doom. Charge into Mordor if you throw a ball in there. Can't time travel either. Yeah, we still don't have time travel. Or do we? We wouldn't know, would we? If we actually had time travel, do you guys actually think that there would be a whole bunch of time travelers just coming back here and being like, hey guys, how's it going? Because I don't. I really don't. I think that time travel probably does exist, but we just haven't, like the people from the future aren't coming down here to morph the past because it's against the law. We just got done playing a video game about that on twitch.tv/the Morse Code. You know, there are rules to time travel. There's an agency and there are rules. You can't leave behind a footprint. Period. Can't do it. By the way, time travel is a lot weird. People think it's just like traveling in time. It's actually space and time. Because if you were to time travel back 100 years ago, then the Earth would be in a completely different place. And I don't just mean in the solar system. I mean like in a completely different part of the universe. Because we travel as a solar system, we travel at like blinding speeds. Meaning that our sun and all the planets around it were somewhere a bajillion miles away 100 years ago. What's a day off? That's a good question. If anybody can find out what a day off is, could you get back to this here in the chat? Really appreciate it. It makes the cancer cells visible to the immune system so they can take care of them. That's badass, dude. I'm so happy about that. Because I'm like, either one of two things are going to get me. It's either going to be cancer or I'm going to go the way my grandma went with like some sort of brain degradation. And I don't want either of those to happen to me. I want to go out in a blaze of glory. That's what I want to do. I don't want to go, you know, I'm kind of that Doc Holliday. I want to go out with my boots on, you know. Something that's worth building a statue of me over. It's something for people not in the 24/7 news cycle. College World Series coming soon. Hopefully will be fun. I can't wait for the return of sports. I can't wait for the return of football. I'm a football man. What type of dog do I have? It's a golden retriever. I actually have two dogs. I have the golden retriever, Remy, or Remington Six Guns, I call him. And then there's Gizmo, the long-haired Chihuahua. How you doing, Cleo? Dude morning. Dude morning. How you doing, Cleo? Welcome to the stream. What type of... I already read that. I wouldn't doubt he has some trauma with boxes. Mazzy gets scared of storms. She was a stray before our ARL found her, and we adopted her. Yeah, Remy's scared of storms as well, but not to a degree. That is... I've seen dogs that are scared of storms get real destructive. He just wants to find a nice desk to hide under, so I give him one. I play Tarkov, and he sits under the desk. That's what he does. Tell the Democrats that there are rules, please. We're about to talk about that. Elliot Sinclair was the Democratic Socialist. Changed my mind. Elliot Sinclair did nothing wrong, as far as I'm concerned. Elliot Sinclair, for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, and you're completely lost, we're talking about this game we were playing. He was the bad guy, but I'm not entirely sure he was wrong. Physics is fun. This is why I don't believe climate change hoaxes. Physics, dude, climate change is real, but it's not real in the sense that the left says it's real. Obviously, the climate changes. It has to. It's not static, right? It changes, but it's more. It has way more to do with our position to the sun and what the sun is doing, oceans, all this stuff, moons. It's way more cosmic than I think the left wants us to think it is. Remy and Gizmo, Team Good Doge. Democratic Socialists of America is what he joined. For now on the Journeyman jokes. Today I wanted to go over Matthew McConaughey and what he said because I'm not entirely sure that Matthew McConaughey means ill. I don't. I do think that he is somewhat a little bit dishonest, but I'm not sure he means to be a person who is just out to enforce one certain agenda. I think that he actually has an idea about what he thinks is right, and he's going for that, and I think it's a little more honest than most people in politics. And I say Matthew McConaughey in politics with quotation marks. Most people in politics let on, but I want to give him the benefit of the doubt. Let's say that. I want to give Matthew McConaughey the benefit of the doubt. Because I really do feel like he wants good change to happen. But I don't think he understands what it takes for that change to happen. I wish that whenever he was speaking to people about this, and when I say people, not, I mean like the experts, that he wouldn't just relegate himself to the people who call themselves experts, politicians and activists on the left, because you can kind of tell that he's been talking to them. He, as far as I know, Dana Lash has not been reached out to. Paige Rue hasn't been reached out to. Like, these people who are out there, I'm sorry, I forgot their name. The Crime Watch Center, I believe is what they're called, has not been reached out to. None of these people have been reached out to by Matthew McConaughey, because if he had, some of the stuff that he's been saying is just not, he wouldn't be saying it at all. He would have a much different outlook on things. Now, some of the stuff that Matthew McConaughey is saying isn't necessarily bad. I agree with some of it. And we're going to go over that. But I do not think that he truly, given he is a Hollywood guy. He is surrounded by Hollywood people. But again, you're seeing the effects of the bubble on Matthew McConaughey. And I think that he exists a little bit outside of it. And I know it sounds like I'm being easy on Matthew McConaughey. I think deep down, I think he's a good dude. I think that, I've read his book. I've seen inside his mind a little bit. And I've heard him speak about various things in the past that I'm like, I can get on board with that. But with this, he seems confused. He doesn't seem to have the entire picture. And I want to address that today. I think it's good that we do that. Because he brings up a lot. And for those of you who are, because some of you are going to be like, well, why are you talking about this? Why are you talking about Matthew McConaughey? Who cares what Matthew McConaughey says? He's okay. You know why we're going to address what Matthew McConaughey said? It's because Matthew McConaughey is an influential person. People are listening to him. They saw what he said at that podium at the White House, and they are going to be affected by it. Which means that we have to address it. And I want to make this abundantly clear. You don't have to like something or want to participate in it for it to be unimportant. Okay? Recently, I wrote an article about how the left is already approaching or moving against us on the right by influencing people on TikTok. And immediately a lot of right-wingers are going to be like, oh, well, it's TikTok. I don't get involved in TikTok. Okay, well, everyone else does. And especially Gen Z. They're involved in TikTok. And you have PR people and paying influencers to go in there and make these low-key political posts that boost the Democrat talking point. And they're going to be effective. They are going to. The left is very practiced at this. The last thing that we want to do is just go, well, I think it's stupid, so I'm not going to show up to the battlefield. That's how we got into a lot of this problem with the culture in the first place. We are so absent from the culture because we chose to do nothing. Because we didn't think it was important. We didn't have a piece of the battlefield that we wanted, so we picked up our toys and went home, and now look at us. We're having to play catch up in the culture. We have to stop doing that. This is why I'm going to address what Matthew McConaughey is saying. Because other people are going to be listening to him and being affected by his words. And some of this is very effective. Watching it, even I felt that tug of emotional argument. And here's the thing that we need to understand as right-wingers, as conservatives, as libertarians. We on the right love to approach every single argument, every single situation, every single debate with facts and figures, which is great. It's great that we do that. It's good that we have those on our side. But do you know how often facts and figures are actually going to affect normal people? Not as much as you'd possibly think. It is the emotional argument that grabs first. And for some people, or I should say most people, that is the end right there. people are far more moved by emotional arguments than facts and statistics. It's important to capture the heart before you capture the mind. That is just the way it is. That is the way we humans operate. That is why I am addressing Matthew McConaughey's thing today. So we're going to go into that. The religion for those too smart for religion is climate change. The church of climate, exactly. HW has his opinion. I have mine. Simply put, if you made money making movies that use guns, shut the F up about gun control. I've been in movies and used guns, so no gun control talk from me. I think, here's the thing. I don't necessarily think that you can't have an opinion per se, but if you're going to be in a movie where you make guns look cool, at least be very understanding of firearm culture, of firearm laws, of statistics, and get them from all over. If I hear one person say, well, the Media Matters for America says that guns X, Y, Z, well, then whatever, March for Our Lives, or Every Town USA says, blah, blah, I'm automatically out. Because they aren't interested in statistics. What they're interested in is narrative. Matthew has armed security, has an opinion just like I do, good intentions and all that jazz. Yeah, Ohio signed into law no permits for carry. You mean the open carry? Which I think is absolutely necessary for a polite society. Positive propaganda for the left. TikTok influencers are getting paid to promote leftist. Yeah, exactly. They are. They're getting paid for it. What's up, farmer? Welcome to the show. Let's go ahead and get into it. We're gonna watch this video, and I want to go. I'm gonna go ahead and play it. And I'm gonna do what I usually do. I'm gonna play and I'm gonna stop it when I have something to add, or I want to correct a record. So let's go ahead and jump in here.
Thank you.
Let me know if you guys can hear it.
To make the loss of these lives matter. My wife and I, Camilla, we spent most of last week on the ground with the families in Uvalde, Texas. We shared stories, tears, and memories. The common thread, independent of the anger and the confusion and the sadness, it was the same. How can these families continue to honor these deaths by keeping the dreams of these children and teachers alive? Again, how can a loss of these lives matter? So while we honor and acknowledge the victims, we need to recognize that this time, it seems that something is different. There is a sense that perhaps there's a viable path forward. Responsible parties in this debate seem to at least be committed to sitting down and having a real conversation about it.
Okay, I want to make something very clear that he's not. This is the same kind of thing that they said after Parkland. They're like, well, now people are coming to the table. They're really listening now. People have been coming to the table with solutions for a long time. The issue is that when it comes to these solutions, the right and the left don't agree. Now, all the stats, all the statistics, all the figures, again, are with conservatives, and they have very common sense solutions. And when I say common sense solutions, I mean common sense. Not like the left likes to use that word. They like to throw out common sense gun control. There's no such thing as common sense gun control when their approach is, okay, well, we're either going to eliminate all guns or we're going to eliminate only some guns. We're going to come out with these ridiculous laws that absolutely have nothing to do with stopping criminals from getting them, just law-abiding citizens. These aren't common sense. If they are stopping good people from being able to defend themselves and still allowing the criminal element of our society to disobey, who don't care about the laws, to disobey these laws and still get firearms. It makes no sense. Okay, if you're a sheep and you watch one of your sheep buddies get mauled by wolves and you notice that the wolf was mauling them with teeth, Then you turned around to your sheep buddies and said, hey, teeth are the cause of this. Let's all pull out our teeth, and y'all all did it. The wolves still have teeth. The wolves aren't going to obey this. So I want to make this very clear. It's not that people were never coming out to help solve the problem. It's that once real solutions are put on the table, the left absolutely rejects them because it doesn't fit in with the anti-gun agenda that they have. And yeah, the right does absolutely reject many of the left solutions, but the left solutions, again, don't make any sense. They're not common sense. They don't make any sense. So Matthew McConaughey, when he says it seems that there's been a change, they said this after the Parkland thing. There's always a moment where people really come to the table together, but they cannot agree on it. And there's a side of these arguments that cannot agree to it strictly because it doesn't fit in with their anti-gun agenda. And I want to remind everybody, your anti-gun agenda is impossible in today's United States. You can't ban the guns. You can't ban the AR-15. You can make laws, sure, that maybe say, okay, well, AR-15 is banned, but you're not going to get people turning them in. The AR-15 is a very widely distributed firearm. Very widely distributed. Very widely bought. I hardly know a household that doesn't have one here in Texas, with a few exceptions. And by the way, I don't know how many they have. You're not going to get rid of them. You're not going to pass a ban. You're still going to have AR-15s in this nation circulating around pretty hardcore. We've had a long time to buy and distribute. It's not happening. Anyway, I'll continue.
A new and improved path forward. A path that can bring us closer together and make us safer as a country. A path that can actually get something done this time.
Am true, you are correct.
Camille and I came here to share my stories from my hometown of Uvalde. We came here to take meetings with elected officials on both sides of the aisle. We came here to speak to them, to speak with them, and to urge them to speak with each other. To remind and inspire them that the American people will continue to drive forward the mission of keeping our children safe, because it's more than our right to do so. It's our responsibility to do so.
Okay.
I'm here today in the hopes of applying what energy, reason, and passion that I have into trying to turn this moment into a reality. Because as I said, this moment is different. We are in a window of opportunity right now that we have not been in before. A window where it seems like real change can happen. Uvalde, Texas is where I was born.
What Brad is referring to in the chat is a pair of green Converse, and that's going to come into play here in a little bit. And it's actually one of the stronger emotional arguments that McConaughey makes, and I will address it.
I swear my mom taught kindergarten less than a mile from Robb Elementary. Uvalde is where I learned to master a Daisy BB gun. That took 2 years before I graduated to a .410 shotgun. Uvalde is where I was taught to revere the power and the capability of the tool that we call a gun. Uvalde is where I learned
I like the fact that he called it a tool. And I want to give props to Matthew McConaughey for that. He called it a tool because it is a tool. Now, given it is a tool of destruction, but it is a tool. And he is not calling it a weapon of war here, which I think is it shows me that he's not here, at least, entirely bent on a leftist agenda.
Gun ownership. Now, Uvalde called me on May 24th when I learned the news of this devastating tragedy. I had been out of cellular range, working in the studio all day when I emerged.
Exactly.
And messages about a mass shooting in the town I was born in began flooding my inbox. In a bit of shock, I drove home. I hugged my children a bit tighter and longer than the night before. And then the reality of what had happened that day in the town I was born in set in. So the next morning, Camilla, myself, the kids, we loaded up the truck and we drove to Uvalde.
Delacroix, I'm going to address that too here in just a
later,
second.
I got to tell you, even from the inside of our vehicle, you could feel the shock in the town. You could feel the pain, the denial, the disillusion, anger, blame, sadness, loss of lives, and dreams halted.
I want to make this clear. Notice that he is already going straight for the emotional aspect of things. And he's not wrong to in this situation, because at the end of the day, this really is about people. This really is about people. But imagine that you are a person who is not very up on gun control laws. You're not really up on firearm statistics. You're not really full-on involved in the political debate around them. Already, McConaughey has, or is, wrapping people in to what he is going to say by using these emotional arguments. And again, this is a solid framework to build off of, because emotional arguments are typically derived from the condition being suffered by people. Now, you and I hear this emotional argument, and we all, just like the left, come to the same conclusion. We've got to do something. But Matthew McConaughey is going to take a tack that convinces people to do something that is against their best interests, the interests of their children, and the future of this country.
We saw ministries, we saw first responders, counselors, cooks, families trying to grieve without it being on the front page news. We met with the local funeral director and countless morticians who hadn't slept since the massacre the day before, because they've been working 24/7 trying to handle so many bodies at once, so many little innocent bodies who had their entire lives still yet to live. And that is there that we met two of the grieving parents, Ryan and Jessica Ramirez. Their 10-year-old daughter, Alethea. She was one of the 19 children that were killed the day before.
It's affecting stuff.
Alethea, her dream was to go to art school in Paris and one day share her art with the world. Ryan and Jessica were eager to share Alethea's art with us and said if we could share it, that somehow, maybe that would make Alethea smile in heaven. They told us that showing someone else Alethea's art would in some way keep her alive. Now, this particular drawing is a self-portrait, all right, of Alethea drawing with her friend in heaven looking down on her, drawing the very same picture. Her mother said of this drawing, she said, you know, we never really talked to her about heaven before, but somehow she knew. Alethea was 10 years old. Her father, Ryan, this man was steady. He was uncommonly together and calm. When a frazzled friend of his came up and said, how are you so calm? I'd be going crazy. Ryan told him, he said, no, you wouldn't.
Delacroix, I don't know, it sounds like the entire speech is made to be manipulative. Yes. Yes. If there's one thing I know about Matthew McConaughey, and he has that, he's, look, I've been running into people like Matthew McConaughey all my life. These are, you know, Texas storytellers. You can't help but want to sit and listen to what they say. I think that Matthew McConaughey is, at his core, a left-wing dude with left-wing ideals. And I have no doubt that Matthew McConaughey isn't just doing this because Uvalde, where he is from, is affecting him emotionally. I think that he sees this as an opportunity to really push a gun control narrative. Now, most of the time when I say that, I honestly think that whenever someone pushes a gun control narrative, it is a bunch of people in ill-fitting suits who walk marbled halls in D.C. Or their state's capital, and they're just pushing this on the people who either don't want it or they're doing so in ignorance. I think that Matthew McConaughey is doing this because he feels the absolute need to do something after Uvalde, where he is from. And so there is an emotional plea that he is making. I want to make this clear. I think that he actually is suffering emotionally from this. But also, it needs to be taken into account that Matthew McConaughey is a very good actor. He knows, and like these Texas storytellers that I grew up around, he knows how to tell a story. He knows how to rope you in. I think that Matthew McConaughey is using his skill willingly, but I also think he's doing it because he feels the need, an actual need, to have something done. And this is part of the reason that Matthew McConaughey in this speech is so dangerous. It's because I think it's coming from a place, he's using his skills, of course, but he's using them from an honest place, I think. Now, your mileage may vary on that, but I think that he actually sees an issue that he wants to solve. Now, I'm not saying that, it's actors using their actual emotions is okay to manipulate people. I'm not saying that, but I think that he's actually coming from a much more honest place. You can disagree with me on that. I get that feeling right now from him. And I'm usually not wrong. But in any case, we'll continue.
No, you wouldn't. You'd be strong for your wife and kids, because if they see you go crazy, that will not help them. Just a week prior, Ryan got a full-time line job, stringing power lines from pole to pole. And every day since landing that well-paying full-time job, he reminded his daughter Alethea, he said, "Girl, Daddy gonna spoil you now." Told her every single night. He said, "Daddy's gonna take you to SeaWorld one day."
The interesting thing about this, though, is like we're listening to this, and we have our side of things. And I don't know a one of you who can hear these stories and not be spurred to some sort of action, right? We're spurred to action, but how we take that action is different than what the left hears and wants to do. You know what I'm saying? And Amtrue is 100% correct, actually. All Matthew McConaughey has to do is suggest some things that the left doesn't approve of, that runs contrary to the leftist narrative, and they will find somebody else to rep their narrative. Right now, Matthew McConaughey is useful. But I think that we have discovered over the course of decades that no matter how celebrated you are by the left, eventually they will chew you up and spit you out because you are either no longer useful or you now run contrary to their new narrative. You can see that happen a lot. Radical feminism was the number one thing on the left for a long time, and then the transgender movement came around, and suddenly radical feminists were being banned and denounced. They only made a brief comeback whenever the Roe v. Wade draft decision was leaked. Which, by the way, funny how the left is the not dangerous party, the not violent party, and yet someone planned to assassinate Judge Kavanaugh.
But he didn't get to spoil his daughter. Lydia. She did not get to go to SeaWorld. We also met Anna and Danilo, the mom and the stepdad of 9-year-old Maite Rodriguez. Now, Maite wanted to be a marine biologist. She was already in contact with Corpus Christi University of A&M for her future college enrollment. 9 years old. Maite cared for the environment so strongly that when the city asked her mother if they could release some balloons into the sky in her memory, her mom said, "Oh, no, Maite wouldn't want to litter." Maite wore green high-top Converse with a heart she had hand-drawn on the right toe because they represented her love of nature. Camilla's got these shoes. Can you show these shoes, please?
Here are the shoes.
Wore these every day. Green Converse with a heart on the right toe.
Okay. I have an issue with this part. This part makes me immediately question Matthew McConaughey. For those of you who have never worn Converse before, if you wear Converse for even a day, you'll notice you come back and there are scuff marks all over the white parts of those shoes. You can't get them off once they're on there too. I mean, you could, but it takes a lot of scrubbing to make these immaculate. Over time, Converse, like you can tell when someone's been wearing Converse every day. You can tell. Even adults, and I wear Converse almost every day. The even adults, who aren't playing outside and maybe even walking through mud puddles or doing whatever that kids tend to do on a daily basis, your shoes, your Converse are going to start to look worn after even just a week or two. Most comfortable shoes ever, but they can start to look worn pretty quickly. That's part of their charm, really. I'm looking at these shoes that this girl allegedly wore every single day, and these shoes are immaculate. Now, they could have washed the shoes and cleaned them up and refurbished the shoes. Okay? But if I was a parent and my daughter's shoes were something like shoes that she loved, wore every day, were something that were left behind, I wouldn't wash them. I would want to keep everything on those shoes as they were, because a part of that is my daughter's character. These tennis shoes, these Converse, look too good. Too good. And here is where my opinion of Matthew McConaughey starts, and his intentions start to turn a little bit. Because up till now, Matthew McConaughey hasn't said anything that I necessarily disagree with. In fact, I would say that he's just paying tribute to the people who lost their lives, to the children who deserve to be recognized. And we should know a little bit about them because they're special. But this part starts to make me go, what you doing? Because I can see these immaculate shoes right here. And you said she wore them every day. They look pretty new to me. It can be solved today. Just put armed guards at the entrances, get rid of gun-free zones, and let the teachers carry if they want and advertise it to the world. Amtrue, you are correct, and I'm going to get into that. No guns, everyone becomes a victim. Yep, the wolves still have teeth. The whole thing is scripted. He's reading from his notes and wrote an op-ed for USA Today. He's not speaking off the cuff or pretending to. That isn't the issue. It's whether what he says has merit. Agreed. Susie is correct. It is scripted. He is reading off of notes. This is something he pre-prepared, and that's fine. Many people give speeches that are pre-prepared. My issue is now, how much of this is something that is genuine? And those shoes are a big indicator. And y'all might think it's weird that I'm focusing in on some shoes, but I just there's something odd about this little moment. How you doing, Kaylin? May 30, woman shoots, kills man breaking into Southeast Houston apartment where she and her child lived. There is only one side of the scales being weighed. We never hear the incidents where lives are saved by using the... Exactly, and according to the CDC, Kaylin is correct. According to the CDC, guns are used a lot more for self-defense than they are used to kill people in cold blood, than commit murder. That is not talked about by the mainstream media, nor is it weighed. And part of that, a lot of this is because much of the incidents where a gun saves people's lives is hard to prove because nothing happened. They can only go by reports or eyewitness accounts. Okay, there are, of course, the times that guns are used and to shoot and kill an attacker, which we can register those. But oftentimes, a gun acts as a deterrent. Once somebody understands that a store owner is armed, a woman walking down the street is armed. Once somebody realizes that, they have to weigh their crime with their life. And sometimes the answer for these criminals is, I'm not even going to start anything to begin with. And they walk away. The only thing left is that the report was there from the person who had to either draw their firearm or they were carrying a firearm that was noticeable at the time. That they only have their word for that. So it's hard to prove it. But according to the CDC, it's a lot.
These are the same green Converse on her feet that turned out to be the only clear evidence that could identify her after the shooting. How about that shit?
What an emotional moment that was. How often do you see someone slam their fist on a podium at the White House? If you're watching that and you don't know anything about politics, this moment right there pretty much sealed the deal that you're ready to do whatever Matthew McConaughey wants you to do.
They wrote a letter. Her mom said if my 8 days letter could help someone accomplish her dream, that then her death would have an impact. And it would mean her dying had a point and wasn't pointless. That it would make the loss of her life matter. The letter reads, Marine biologist, I want to pass school to get to my dream college. My dream college is in Corpus Christi by the ocean. I need to live next to the ocean because I want to be a marine biologist. Marine biologists study animals and the water. Most of the time I will be in a lab. Sometimes I will be on TV. Then there was Ellie Garcia, a 10-year-old, and her parents, Stephen and Jennifer. Ellie loved to dance and she loved church. She even knew how to drive tractors and was already working with her dad and her uncle mowing yards. Ellie was always giving of her gifts, her time, even half-eaten food on her plate, they said. Said around the house, we called her the Great Regifter. Smiling through tears, her family told us how Ellie loved to embrace. Said she was the biggest hugger in the family. Now, Ellie was born Catholic, but had been going to Baptist church with her uncle for the last couple of years. Her mom and dad were proud of her because they said she was learning to love God no matter where. The week prior to her passing,
this performance is solid. It's right on. I don't want to say that he's not feeling some of these emotions, but I do think that he is using his acting ability to increase them, because that's what you do when you're an actor. Again, I think he's genuinely feeling some of these emotions, but I think that he is playing them much larger than they need to be played in order to get you emotionally on board. And he's going from child to child to child. He is about 9.5 minutes in to his speech, and he has yet to offer any real solutions. Now, I'm not saying that's, this is a bad thing. He is getting you into a mindset. I can't stress this enough. He is getting you into a mindset. He is making it impossible for you to say no. And again, you and I are watching this and we're seeing a call for a solution that we already have. Because you and I we know what to do. We've had the answer for some time now. But if you're not into this, and when I say into this, I mean the politics of it all. Gun control legislation, knowledge about it, the firearm statistics, crime statistics, social statistics when it comes to firearms. If you're not into any of this, if you haven't studied any of this, you have no defense against what Matthew McConaughey is doing right now. None. This is a genius move by the left. Genius. Matthew McConaughey is from Uvalde. He has every right to be emotional. But let's also remember that Matthew McConaughey is an actor. And he has a position on guns, and we know he has a position on guns. Because he was at the March for Our Lives march, doing a speech there and saying some stuff that seem a little contrary to the middle ground. So we know he has a position. And I do think that he is honest in his idea that something needs to be done. But I think that he's going about it in a way that he knows is a tad manipulative. But again, he's an actor. He's trying to sell his position. He's trying to sell you an idea, and he knows how to do it very well. Let's go ahead and skip forward. I want to go to this. Matthew Conner, he starts coming up with solutions. And I kind of want to go over some of these solutions that he comes up with, because some of them are good, some of them are not. Some of them are a little shallow, in my honest opinion. I think he's feeling them, but I also think that this is reminiscent of his closing argument in A Time to Kill. I actually haven't seen that movie. I love Matthew McConaughey's movies. I do. I see a lot of them. Embellishment is the word. Virtue signaling doesn't actually care. I think he actually does care. I think he does. I just think that he's using his skills.
Families of the deceased, mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, Texas Rangers, hunters, Border Patrol, and responsible gun owners who won't give up their Second Amendment right to bear arms. And you know what they all said? We want secure and safe schools, and we want gun laws that won't make it so easy for the bad guys to get these damn guns.
Okay.
So,
but
we know it's on the table.
Right.
We need to invest in mental health care.
Hallelujah! Good. Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Matthew McConaughey. That's something that we have been saying for some time. Mental health care has been a thing that many on the left have rejected every single time we try to talk about it. In fact, I can remember during the Black Lives Matter riots, right after it wasn't the Black Lives Matter riots. It was during, maybe it was the Parkland shooting. It was after one of the shootings. And I can remember that I started talking about mental health on Twitter and in articles and in interviews. And almost every single time, leftists would come back with something like, yo, mental health is just a distraction from the fact that racism is a huge part of this. Mental health, they're just trying to distract from the fact that white people are out there shooting people. The entirety of the left did that. They tried to make it not a mental health issue. They wanted to make it a gun issue, as if the gun, an inanimate object, a tool, as Matthew McConaughey said, a tool is just sitting in the corner, and like the One Ring is just like, hey, up. Take me out. And use me to kill innocent people. Come on, you can do it. It's whispering in your mind. It's not. It's an inanimate object. If you lay it down on a table and don't touch it, all right, go ahead and load it, rack it back, and set it down. And you can scream at it, insult it, try to convince it to go off, and it won't go off. It won't. Until it is manipulated by a user, a gun does not do anything. And yet, the left wants to make it seem like the gun is some sort of sentient object that is killing people all on its lonesome or convincing people to do so. It's not. Buried beneath all of this is a mental health argument that we need to be having. Not even an argument, really, just a study. We need to be able to focus in on it without it being political. Period. So Matthew McConaughey, thank you for pointing that out. Thank you for saying we need more mental health research and help in our society. Because right now, there are people who actively don't want to talk about that. I love the fact that you're talking about it. Thank you very much. And moreover, let's get mental health more popular for men. Especially young teenage men. Teenage men and men in their younger 20s are suffering depression big time. Why? Because society is consistently telling them that they are bad for being men. They are being treated like defective girls. They are shamed constantly, told that they're dangerous and that, they have to subscribe to some sort of feminism in order to be good boys. That their mere their drives are disgusting. And they're massively depressed and they retreat into themselves. And there's a reason that suicide is so high among men. There's a reason. So yes, I am all about, thank you, Matthew McConaughey. That's one of your good ideas. What else you got for me?
What do you say for schools?
Safer schools. I'm there. The issue is that whenever we talk about making schools safer, we on the right, or the gun, even just moderate, I shouldn't even say right. We on the pro-gun side are saying, okay, let's research the soft points of schools, because there are organizations out there that will go out pro bono and actually show you, or like kind of explore your school and come up with scenarios that, where if a school shooter came in, who would they hit first? What would be the first thing they would go to? Who would they aim for? What would be their most attractive points? They do this pro bono. What are your exits and entrances look like? And also, how many armed security officials do you have on scene? Moreover, many of us think, hey, why not armed teachers? For any teacher that wants to be armed, go through a training process that you have to update every now and again. Okay? Like, let's say every 2 years, you have to go through another training course in order to keep your firearm in a school. Okay? You're trained within the school how to, what to do in case of a shooter, where you can use your gun, how to use your gun. Okay? Tactical experience. And again, there are groups that will go out and teach these teachers these things. Okay? Let them carry. And that will make our schools safer. Our schools will be so much safer. They will no longer be gun-free zones. By the way, also, I want to make this clear. 98%. It's either 95 or 98, but either way, it's in the high 90th percentile of mass shootings over the past 50 years have occurred in gun-free zones. Why do we still have them? They don't make any sense. They especially don't make sense on school grounds. Because there's a sign outside that says this is a gun-free zone. Who is going to obey that? The law-abiding, yeah. But do you think a criminal is going to care? No, he doesn't care. He's coming to kill people. You think a sign is going to stop him? No. What a stupid thing to think. All right? You see a gun-free zone sign. A mass shooter sees all-you-can-eat buffet. Bottom line. So you want to make schools safer? I agree. Let's do it. Let's take steps that make sense, though.
We need to restrain sensationalized media coverage.
Oh my God. It's like he's speaking my language. I agree. There have been studies that show, and this especially applies to the Black Lives Matter riots, that the moment the media shows up to any situation where blood has been spilled on the ground, they escalate the circumstances, the attitudes, the emotions by like a bajillion percent. They actually cause more harm than they do good. So I am 100%. It's like Matthew McConaughey is reading my mind. Sensationalized media coverage, I think that I'm not saying that we need to implement laws. I'm not saying this at all, that reins in the media, because that is a bad idea for many reasons. But I do think that there should be an ethical standard among journalists that we currently don't have. Because the truth about the media is that if it bleeds, it leads. The moment blood is spilled on the ground, there is going to be 1 million cameras racing to the scene in order to point at it with their cameras. They're going to start talking to bystanders who are currently in heightened emotional states. They're going to consult experts. Now we go live to school shooting expert, blah, blah, blah. They're going to be lining them up. They're going to have contributors commenting about the political state of the world, using that as the backdrop. It is a sensationalist's dream. And you know why they do it? Because it's good TV, boy. It's good TV. People just eat it up. And the politicians love it too. They love the media sensationalism because it allows it's grease for their political aspirations, their narratives and their agendas. It is butter on the banister. The elites have armed guards, but our schools do not. Isn't that weird, Cleo? Isn't that strange? More help, but hopefully they won't be pushing trans ideology, which has infected mental health profession. Agreed. That means when we say mental health, we mean mental health. Not the introduction of, and I can see them doing this too, not the introduction of more political narratives into a mind. Gun-free zone is an illusion of safety. It is. It is an illusion. Will they do it? I'm sure there are many schools out there who have actually started to, private schools mainly, say, no, this is not a gun-free zone. You come in here, you're probably going to die. Restrained coverage. Agreed. This is a really great idea. Matthew McConaughey isn't wrong here. And if they do any of this reasonable stuff, it will likely be turned malicious and incredibly shallow. I don't doubt it. Nope, that is not true. Only the shootings that fit their narratives so they can push more gun laws. Amtrue is actually, you are correct there. It has to fit a certain criteria in order for the media to sensationalize it. But when they do sensationalize it, like they are doing with a lot of the past mass shootings, it makes the issue worse. In fact, one of the researchers, he was a Harvard researcher who kind of studied whether or not, he set out to find out whether or not police actually make situations worse. And I can't remember his name, but I've written an article about it. I'll link it in my Twitter. He went out to see if police actually did make situations worse, as Black Lives Matter claimed. And he found that it was the absence of police that actually caused the any given situation in any town, any city whatsoever to escalate by leaps and bounds. Now, If the absence of police does that, and the presence of police actually helps, then what is the issue? What's the real issue? And he actually started to do more research kind of off of that research, and he found that anytime the media showed up to any given situation, the issue escalated by leaps and bounds. He went to the media, various members of the media, to give them this information, and they told him to keep it quiet. They rejected to even see it. Didn't want that getting out. And I'll link that story. In fact, I might actually end up writing about it today. I'll include it in the story. So go to redstate.com. I'll be having articles come out a little bit later revolving around what we're talking about today. And I will link that story into the article itself.
We need to restore our family values.
It's like he's like he's scratching my back. I've got a really bad itch on my back, and he's scratching the right spot. Yes, here's the thing. Every single study that has gone into young mass shooters especially, it starts with a bad family life. And I got into an argument earlier today with a woman on Twitter who I noticed that one of the politicians during a hearing today said, well, these kids, they play these violent video games, and that makes me mad immediately. I'm so sick and tired of this late 80s, early 90s sensationalism about video games reappearing over and over and over again. Video games don't make you violent. In fact, there have been multiple studies that actually show that in a normal mind, like mine and yours, video games tend to reduce aggressive tendencies, right? However, if a mass shooter or anybody who really goes out and shoots anybody has a video game nearby, they immediately correlate that. If you are an alcoholic and you are out and you see a person drinking your favorite drink, and you break down and you go in there and you start buying drink after drink after drink because you were influenced by that dude, nobody is going to turn around and say the dude who was originally drinking the drink is at fault for the alcoholic going in and drinking. They'd laugh you out of the building. Because they would say, well, it's about personal responsibility. That is true. If you are a child or a young man and your home life is abusive, it's violent, it's neglectful, it has all the earmarks of helping to develop a mental illness toward the world, then you are predisposed to violence already. Picking up a video game is likely not going to help that situation. I can agree with that. But like the alcoholic who picked up a drink because he saw another guy drink, the guy who was drinking originally is not at fault for the alcoholic picking up a drink. Just like the video game is not at fault for the kid picking up a gun. He was already predisposed to violence and mental illness before that because of his home life. We do need, Matthew McConaughey is correct here, we do need better family values. The collapse of the nuclear family, in my honest opinion, has been one of the largest problems. It has contributed the most, in my opinion, to the destruction of our social fabric. You have had for some time now all sorts of activists, whether they be, Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter made it very clear that one of the things that they wanted to do was destroy the nuclear family. They put it in their What We're About page before they took it down because people kept pointing at it. Feminists, you don't need a man in your life. They're abusive. Don't serve a man. There has been a division between men and women being driven into us by our mainstream culture and the mainstream media. It has torn apart our nuclear family. The sexual revolution was another one. It has torn apart the nuclear family, and because of the nuclear family being torn apart, many children growing up have suffered some sort of mental setback. And I mean, it's all right there in front of us. If you actually look at the studies that show the correlation between poverty and crime to single-parent households, it's glaring. Now, I'm not saying that every single mother out there is raising a criminal or a bad person. That's not what I'm saying at all. But, I mean, it is you're more likely to see a person be poor or a criminal when they come from a single-parent household. The statistics are there. And you can kind of also see what things look like whenever there is a good father in the home. The mental health of the children who are raised in a stable nuclear family household come out far more stable, mentally capable, confident than children who aren't. If we really want to start turning society around, we can start in the home by promoting good family values, by promoting good marriages, by promoting good child rearing. But we live in a society that doesn't do that right now. So far, Matthew McConaughey is speaking my language. He's not going too far into these notes, I will say that. He's just kind of mentioning them. And I wish he would. I wish he would say a lot more. But we'll see. We'll see where he really sits. What do they think is going to happen in the metaverse that they are going to try and make? Yeah, exactly. That's a really good point, True. I didn't think about that. With the metaverse coming on, the Oasis is on. We're on the verge of the Oasis. Did they suddenly the video game is going to be a problem then? Spent 3 years in AA. It wasn't the guy's fault if I drink. Exactly. The collapse of the nuclear family was also planned. It is a Marxist tactic. Oh, he said Marxist. Oh, no, it's true. It's true. One of the things that they wanted to take aim at was the nuclear family. Because if you actually get the child away from a stable parent relationship or a stable parent household, he is more easily manipulated. And you can see it. You can see it. And it's sad, man. It's really sad. Divorce, abortion on demand, two parents working, media lessening values. Yep. People think that, the old-fashioned nuclear 1950s household was evil. At least that's what it's being sold as. But if you really look at it, it raised very stable people. People were happier back then. It's not any accident that ever since the sexual revolution happened and feminism became like the most important thing ideologically in a woman's life, that the unhappiness of women has skyrocketed. Skyrocketed. The depression of men has skyrocketed. It's not... A lot of people don't understand the effect that leftism has, not just on society, but on our mental health. And then you want to, I mean, I wish that there was, because I don't have any right now, and I haven't seen any studies released about it. But look at your typical social justice warrior. And I say social justice warrior, they are buried deep into leftist ideology, extreme leftist ideology. How many of those people on the left would you actually say? And I mean, look at this objectively, not from your right-wing goggles. Take them off for a second and look at the person objectively. Would you say that they're happy? Would you say that they're stable? Would you say that they are making the right decisions in their life for it to be more prosperous? Would you say that, would you invite them over to your home to sit down or even just hang out with them at a bar? No, they are insane. They're insane people. They're consistently angry, lost. have these values that make absolutely no sense. They seem almost bipolar most of the time. They go from 0 to furious in like a split second. They're insulted by everything and everything. They see fault in everything. After a while, you're just like, these people, I don't want to be around them. I especially don't want them deciding what is and isn't moral. Leftism has a very serious effect on our society, and it attacks our mental health. So far, McConaughey has said everything correctly here. Let's continue.
We need to restore our American values.
Yeah. I don't think I need to add more to that. I mean, that's just true.
And
okay,
we need responsible gun ownership. Responsible gun ownership. We need background checks.
We have those. We have background checks. But I mean, there's only so far that we can go with background checks. But we have them. Okay? But if you are a person doing intent on doing harm, and you've never done a crime before, background check's not going to pick you up, obviously. But I do want to remind everyone that those who are wanting to do anything wrong don't have to go through the federal system in order to get a gun. If they really want one, they can find one somewhere else. Again, we are a gun culture. We are. And that's good. That's okay. It's great. I wish we'd embrace it more, because if we did, we wouldn't be having these issues. But we have background checks.
We need to raise the minimum age to purchase an AR-15 rifle.
Why? To 21? Why? You can sign up at the age of 18 to be in the military. You can vote at the age of 18, but you can't enjoy the full benefits of someone who is enjoying full citizenship. Full citizenship benefits. You can't enjoy them until what? You're 21? Doesn't make any sense. I wouldn't mind something along the lines of maybe a trial period, almost like a driver's license. But then again, how would we enforce that? Because I'm not going to register guns. Maybe you need to be in the military? I don't know. At a certain age. These are things we could talk about. But just saying, hey, let's raise the minimum. First off, you'll notice a lot of people who do killings are above the age of 21. What about them? This seems arbitrary. It doesn't seem helpful. What's up, Mintat? My suggestions are far more radical, but I promise to tone down the spicy stuff, so may have to find another avenue to express it to keep it to myself. There's always the Discord. When you take away something from... yeah, thank you, Nightbot. My suggestions are far more... I just read that. The day and age you can make your own guns and explosives, not hard, really. War has been around since the dawn of time. Exactly. If you want to make a weapon, you can. In fact, we have 3D printing now. This is an arbitrary thing to say. Raising the age to 21, I do not think is going to help the situation whatsoever. If you really want to get a gun, you can find one.
To 21. We
Why?
need a waiting period for those rifles. We need red flag laws.
Okay, one at a time.
Consequence.
One at a time here. He just kind of buzzed by those. Waiting periods don't do anything. There is no research that says that waiting periods actually help with anything with the exception of suicide. And even then, if you are a depressed person who wants to kill themselves, it's probably going to happen at some point in time. One way or another, you'll find a way to do it. Even if you can't get a gun. The whole entire idea of waiting periods is to try to get people to cool down. They call it a cool down period in some places. But if you are intent on doing harm, if you are intending to plan out and do a mass shooting, for instance, let's take the Buffalo shooter, for instance. The Buffalo shooter had this planned out for some time. He made it seem like this was just his grocery shopping list that he was going to do over the weekend. Now, no matter how long they would have made him wait, the moment that he had gotten a firearm after his waiting period, he would have gone out and shot people. This does not do anything. Waiting periods do not have any effect. Studies make that clear. I'm not entirely sure, and also I want to make sure we understand this. If you're in a situation, in a place and time when you need to get a firearm fast for self-defense, which is what the vast majority of Americans would have done or do, then you're sitting here stuck waiting arbitrarily for days or weeks before you get a gun, and by that time, the danger has already come and affected you. Many people during the Black Lives Matter riots who lived in those cities went out and purchased a gun because they felt the need right then and there to be able to protect themselves or their livelihoods or their families or their properties or whatever it is. They needed it right then and there. And I want to remind everybody, it is not the government say whether or not I can have a gun. And when I want a gun shall not be infringed. It's black and white, buddy. Red flag laws, he also rattled off. The red flag laws. How are you going to enforce the red flag laws without breaking the Constitution? It doesn't make any sense. For those of you who don't know what red flag laws are when somebody says, hey, I think that person over there is dangerous. Go take his guns. And because of that report, law enforcement is supposed to show up at your house, confiscate your guns, and then you have to prove your innocence if you want them back. And there's no telling when you'll get those back. It's the government. They can hold them for as long as they want. And I'm 90% sure that in blue states, they'll hold on to them for a really long time. Minimum mandatory waiting period before you can reclaim your firearms after you've been reported to the authorities over red flag laws. Also, I want to remind everybody that they have tried to enact red flag laws in various places, and the law enforcement agencies, specifically sheriff's departments who are elected by the people. I want to remind everybody that sheriff's departments are elected by the people and they obey the people and the Constitution. Not city cops per se, because that's typically, city cops are just really the mayor's private army. But many sheriff's departments said, I'm not enforcing this. I'm not putting the lives of not only do I not have the manpower, I'm not putting my officers' lives in danger by having them go to homes in order to confiscate guns that the Constitution says I can't have. Red flag laws are a DOA idea. Red flag laws are a bad idea, so no. No. What was the other one?
Flag laws and consequences for those who abuse them.
Okay. I'm glad that he threw that in there because it will be abused. Your next door neighbor who has beef with you says, well, I think he's crazy. He's dangerous. He and I were fighting the other day, and I know he's got guns. I think he's going to come kill me. And they come and you have no prior history of any sort of crime, any sort of aggressive behavior, nothing like that. But they come in and they take your guns anyway. It can be abused. So if they do institute something like that, yeah, I think that people should be very, very, very severely punished for attempting to take away somebody's two-way rights. There are times, guys, when I understand a red flag law and how it will work. The guy who was cutting up his face before the Uvalde shooting, shooting people with BB guns. Yeah, that's a red flag, and he should be investigated. He should be. I think that, the kid before the Parkland shooting, the kid had many, many, many instances of mental illness. There are instances where the kid, and I feel like this is a constant, the kid actually gave off signs that he is intending to be very violent. I get that we can watch them more carefully. But there is no possible way, there is not a shred of evidence that tells me that people who enact red flag laws will enact them fairly. They just won't. I know they won't. They will come up with every excuse possible to equate you, a law-abiding citizen who has never done anything wrong, to a kid who's going nuts, cutting his face, shooting people with BB guns, writing dangerous letters to people, threatening letters to people. They will do everything in their power to do that. Red flag laws are just a bad idea, period. And I don't know how they jive with the Constitution. Maybe we do need red flag laws. I know some people who are prime candidates to be the next James T. Hodgkinson or Major Nadal Malik Hassan. Again, there are times when I feel like, yeah, you know what? People could be watched a little more carefully. For sure. And in a perfect world, I would say, you know what? Red flag laws, let's do it. Because everyone's honest and everyone's going to do exactly what they need to do by the letter of the law. But they're not going to. They're not going to. 5150 does exist, and that doesn't take away Second Amendment rights to own one. I just remember karma is karma. Use case, criminal just stakes out a house and calls in a red flag so they can go rob or worse the place without impunity. Delacroix, that is I've never thought of that. That is such a good, oh my God. That's good. That's a good point. Criminals would abuse the hell out of it because they know that they can make a hard target into a soft target real fast. Real fast. Remember they tried to confiscate guns in New Orleans after Katrina? I don't remember that.
These are reasonable practices.
I'm not saying it didn't happen, but I don't remember that, and that's nuts. And especially because Katrina was an environment where you had looters. Galveston, I lived in Galveston when Ike hit, and if we had our guns on us because people love to come in afterward when everyone is gone and stuff's easily broken into, and they love to steal. Love to steal. And we had signs out front of various businesses and homes. Looters shot on sight. Not a lot of looting happened.
Tactical regulations to our nation, states, communities, schools, and homes. Responsible gun owners are fed up with the Second Amendment being abused and hijacked by some deranged individuals. These regulations are not a step back.
I hate it when people do this. Second Amendment gun owners are sick and tired of the Second Amendment, gun owners, responsible gun owners are sick and tired of the Second Amendment being abused and used. I agree to a point. Don't speak for me. First off, don't speak for me. What I am sick of, when I hear the Second Amendment being used and abused, what I think, is that there are people out there who want to consistently stand in my way from me protecting myself from people who would actually use firearms for evil, who, by the way, are far fewer than the millions and millions of gun owners out there who have no desire to do anything bad with their firearms. The only time they want to use them is if they're practicing on a range with rules and regulations or in their own properties where no one is going to get hurt, or in self-defense or hunting. One of those three. That's the only time. I am sick and tired of people standing in the way of gun owners from taking action when they are most needed. You have so many people out there. After the shooting, I think it was Parkland, if I'm not mistaken. After the shooting in Parkland, you had over 1,000 teachers, and more were on the way, who were signing up to be trained how to use a firearm so that they could appeal to the schools that they were teaching in. Okay? And yet, I'm sure many of those teachers didn't get to carry their firearm into schools because the school board, the state, or local authorities said, nay, thou shalt not. This is a gun-free zone. Safety enough. They're standing in the way of people who intend well with their guns from protecting others from those who intend to do ill with their guns. That's what I'm sick of seeing as a responsible gun owner. That's what I'm sick and tired of seeing. I'm sick and tired of people getting in the way of people doing good, of enjoying their Second Amendment rights in the way that they are supposed to be enjoyed, in the protection of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Again, coming down with these gun regulations and common sense gun laws, you are just pulling the teeth out of the mouths of the sheep. The wolves still have the teeth. Doesn't make any sense. It's not common sense. You're not going to get rid of guns in America. They're here. They've been circulated for hundreds of years. They're not going anywhere. You're not going to be able to ban certain guns and have them disappear overnight. It's just not going to happen. Again, circulation, far too much. Do you really want people to be able to be safe from guns? Give people guns. An armed society is a polite one. Stop pushing blind fear over education of firearms. Stop. It's not hard. If we are a gun culture, let's embrace it. Let's know about firearms. Let's get used to being around firearms. Let's let people carry firearms without having to worry about, their innocence getting in the way of your narrative. Education over blind fear is everything. Bring back guns clubs for schools. We used to have gun clubs in schools. Bring it back. Desensitize the people to firearms. Don't make them more sensitive. Don't take away knowledge about firearms, a huge part of our culture. Don't take away knowledge. Introduce more. Change the cultural attitude from guns are bad, okay, to, oh my God, is that the new SIG? I want it. Like that. It's teach responsibility. Train people. Encourage people to be trained. Armed teachers. Matthew McConaughey, if he really wants to help, he would say these things. He would understand many of these things. But he doesn't. And I appreciate some of the stuff that Matthew McConaughey is saying. Don't get me wrong. I think he is half right. Half. But I don't think he fully gets it. I really don't. And I don't think that many people should be fooled by it. Law-abiding second gun owners are just sick and tired of people trying to take our guns. And for good reason. Because the argument doesn't end with, well, I just want to have a gun, which, by the way, in America should be enough. I want one. Why do you need a gun? I want one. Period. That should be the end of it. But let's continue the argument. Let's go down the hole. It's not just because we like guns and we just want to be able to have them. There's a whole slew of reasons why we want to be able to have them. When the elites give up their armed guards, maybe I will listen. Yeah. General Can't Fix Stupid gave the best press conference. General Can't Fix Stupid. They won't come take our guns. They know... What's up, Animalco? They know what would happen. They'll try to tax them out of existence. I heard that, but the issue still remains. You still have hundreds and hundreds of years of gun distribution throughout the United States. Let's say you did tax them so that people don't buy them anymore. Where do you think they're going to get them now? Black market. They're here. They're here. They're not going anywhere. Another case of do what I say, not what I do. Yeah. Yet the 1,000 Delacroix. Yeah, the 1,000% tax already proposed. Again, it's not going to solve anything. It's not going to solve anything. And also, once again, we live in an era where we can just print our own guns, guys. This is it's a dumb move. And gun owners that already own guns become very rich. Exactly. The guy who has the most guns can sell them for a pretty good amount. It's all people just turn to the black market. Confiscation, though, I'd like to see them come out here to Susitna Valley and try to take people's guns. Same. There are many. That's one of the reasons that many sheriffs refuse to absolutely enforce any of these laws. Absolutely refused. Because they were like, no, I'm not going to go in there. Why aren't you going to go in there and take their guns? Because they got guns. I'm not doing it. I'm not sending my officers in there. Schools used to have gun clubs. Cleo, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Bring those back. I don't think he wants to get it. Again, I'm not sure about Matthew McConaughey's. I don't think they're bad motives. I just don't think he's talking to the right people. I think his Hollywood bubble has forced him to think a certain way, and if he really wants to know more, talk to Dana Lash. I actually tweeted that at him too. I was like, and you know what? You guys should tweet it at him too if you got Twitter accounts. Hey, Matthew McConaughey, go talk to Dana Lash. Sit down and speak with Dana Lash. She'll set him right. She'll make him understand. Or at least try to. And if he takes nothing from that talk with Dana Lash, then we'll know that he's not actually honest. When I was in high school, teen boys with pickups had guns in the back of their windows with a rack. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. My uncle was telling me about that. You know, guns were not that big of a deal. And I'll also mention, not a lot of school shootings. Had 2 hunters with rifles slung on their backs walk through Beaver Creek Village in Colorado. No one cared. Yeah. And no one should. No one should. But here's the other thing, and I'll say this. I think a lot of that, the neighborhood stuff, back in the day, you know, the internet wasn't around. You had people who got to know their neighbors. You got to know your community pretty well. So if you saw Jim walking down the street with a gun slung on his back, and you know Jim, he's a good guy, your first thought isn't, oh my God, Jim's got a gun. It's, hey, Jim's got a gun. What you doing, Jim? What you got there? Can I see it? You know, it wouldn't have bothered you. Of course, none of these stupid ideas will solve anything, but these are politicians. They are in the trap of, we have to do something. This is something, let's do this. Yep. And it looks good whenever you do something as a politician. The ATF is going to ban part sales, so 3D printing isn't going to be viable. You can't print the small parts. I don't know. I don't know. Technology advances, dude. And I kind of think that at some point in time, small parts aren't going to be a big deal. You know? Sheriffs have better things to do than get shot at. Exactly. And yes, I'm true. Dana is awesome. Guys, that's going to do it for me today. Thank you guys so much for hanging out and allowing me to rant and for adding your own knowledge here. Really do appreciate it. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Go forward. Don't buy the nonsense. Don't buy the nonsense. Don't let emotional arguments distract you. But also, learn to use them. Because they are important. In any case, guys, I will see you guys on Friday. Go to redstate.com to check out everything we've got going. VIP. Sign up for it. Promo code Morse. It really helps us out. Follow me at the Morse Code. And I will see you guys later. By the way, if you have anything you want to address or talk to me about, my DMs are open. I'll see you guys later. Peace!